outcome. Today's hearing is exactly what the Oversight Committee is supposed to focus on. Frankly, what Congress is supposed to focus on: eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, things that have been going on at the Ex-Im Bank for a long, long time. The Export-Import Bank is little more than a fund for corporate welfare. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Senator Barack Obama in 2006. He was right. The bank was and is corrupt beyond repair, and everyone knows it. But 9 years later, the bank still exists. Why? The answer to that question represents the worst of politics. Every time the bank is up for reauthorization, deep-pocketed special interests and their friends on K Street descend on Washington with Chicken Little fables about how small businesses across America will suffer if the bank's charter is allowed to expire. The reality is that 99.9% of small businesses across America get no assistance from the Ex-Im Bank. The bank's beneficiaries are some of the largest companies in America. And I don't fault large companies. They're great. We're glad they're here. We're glad they do the great things they do in our economy, but they don't need middle-class taxpayers' help to succeed. And of course, one company has received most of the assistance from the bank, and that's Boeing. Many have called Ex-Im the bank of Boeing, and for good reason. In the last fiscal year, 40% of all authorized funds from the bank went to one company, Boeing. That's 1.5 times more support than received by all the small businesses combined. And the degree to which small businesses are actually small is not entirely clear. A November 2014 Reuters analysis revealed the bank listed companies owned by billionaires Warren Buffett and Mexico's Carlos Slim as small businesses. Besides big corporations who don't need the support, the other main beneficiaries are Ex-Im Bank employees themselves. Recently, Michael Whalen was hired by the bank as the Vice President of Structured Finance. He comes from Solar Reserve, which had a junk bond rating but still received $737 million taxpayer dollars from the Obama administration program that supported Solyndra and has been a candidate for Ex-Im financing. There's Tom Kiernan. He joined the bank's advisory committee earlier this year, and he's also chief executive of the American Wind Energy Association and represents many companies that have received Ex-Im support. The revolving door between Boeing and the government is especially troubling. Corey Golden, senior director at Boeing, before that he was a loan officer at the Export-Import Bank, overseeing relationships with foreign airlines. So now think about this. He worked for Ex-Im, which gives 40% of its financing to Boeing, and now he works for Boeing. Such a deal. There's also Bill Daley, who resigned from Boeing's board of directors in January 2011 to become White House Chief of Staff, and former Secretary of Commerce John Bryson, who left Boeing's board to join the Obama cabinet. In 2006, when then Senator Obama called the bank out for being a fund for corporate welfare, in 2012, the President spoke at a Boeing plant and joked that he deserved a gold watch because, quote, "I'm selling your stuff all the time." Corporate connectedness, corporate cronyism, and there's also just flat-out corruption at the Ex-Im Bank. Just yesterday, a former employee at the bank was indicted for bribery. Last summer, this committee held a hearing related to numerous investigations into fraud at the bank. 2 officials were accused of accepting gifts and kickbacks from companies seeking export financing. One of these employees, an official with significant responsibility over a decision to award taxpayer-backed export assistance, is accused of accepting cash payments from an applicant company. It's a nice way of saying bribes. 2 more officials were accused of improperly awarding contracts to favored companies. All 4 employees were referred to the Ex-Im Bank's Office of the Inspector General, and the investigation is currently being handled jointly by the IG and the Department of Justice. Given these issues, many have asked, is the bank fixable? In 2012, Congress engaged in the noble task of attempting to reform the dysfunction at the bank. Mr. Hochberg, I guess, and others this morning are likely to say that the bank has implemented the reforms. I respectfully disagree, and I think the GAO has some concerns about what they haven't done as well. The heart of the matter, however, is that the bank's very existence is anathema to free enterprise and American values. Members of Congress will face many difficult decisions and tough votes in the months and years ahead. But reauthorization of the Ex-Im Bank is not one of them. This is an easy call. This bank is corrupt, and it should be eliminated. It should be allowed to wind down in the natural course of events and not be reauthorized. And with that, I would yield back my time.